Okay, I'd like to call this public hearing to order for Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. And again, if you would please rise, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let me just make a couple of opening comments. Health Department has proposed a new fee schedule. The last time the fees were relating to user fees within the Health Department, and this covers everything from septic systems to well inspections to restaurant inspections, child care, nursery school inspections, plan reviews and land use, well and septic system inspections and reviews, nail salons, et cetera, anything that falls under the purview of the Health Department. Not everything the Health Department does is user fees, but some of these things are user fees in that the expectation is that the client pays all or most of the fee for the service, that burden does not fall on taxpayer, and this is consistent with other departments such as the building department and public utilities and so on. The last time the fee schedule was changed, was updated, was 1997, so what we have today is 21 years out of date. The fee schedule that Ms. Vasile, who was here to your left, Director of Health, has proposed was researched on the basis of actual costs as well as comparison to neighboring towns. And I think we compared to about eight towns or so, and tried to she tried to put the fee schedule in the middle of the road in terms of how we compare to our neighboring towns. One important thing I want to point out, the fee schedule that was published was incorrect. It had a major typo, and that the name of the fee, and you'll notice that they follow the ordinances, so they're labeled like number 200, 200.1, 201, and so on. The label of the fee was offset by one row, so that may have led to some things that looked wildly out of whack. Not that there aren't some increases in there. Obviously there are, but I just wanted to point that out. So what you're holding in your hand now, what was passed out, is correct. And with that, I will open the floor for comment. And just again, this is not a town meeting. This is a public hearing, so we'll be hearing comments. We'll answer simple questions as best we can. If there's anything more detailed, we'll write the question down and get back to you. But this is just to hear from the public. There'll be no decisions made this evening, no votes taken, nothing like that. So the floor is open for comments. Yes, ma'am.
Pat Rist, 10 Shelter Rock Road. It's kind of a multiple choice here, which is I'm looking at temporary license, seasonal license, nonprofit temp food. Yeah. So I wanted to know, where does the food truck business fall when they're here? And do they pay per event? And how much do they pay per event? And for the restaurants, when they do events for the community, such as when we do Best of Bethel, we have a restaurant come out to Best of Bethel. Not only are they donating the food, are they now also expected to pay another fee on top of that? And I guess the nonprofit, I'm not sure exactly how nonprofit falls into this, but my personal preference would have been phase the fees in over 3 to 5 years, not to whack some businesses with a 200+ increase in fees. And I realize we are less than Laura. I realize we are less than some of our surrounding towns, not all of them, but they've been increasing their fees all along. You know, the fact that we haven't increased ours for a number of years, that's unfortunate. But I would think at this point you would start to phase them in versus just hammering people for these large fees.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's trying to hammer anything.
No, I'm just talking about the comparison numbers, that these are
So-
huge jumps.
And so, well, after 20 years, they really would be. So as far as the food trucks, we've always given people options. So I'm going to lead you through their options. If a food truck wants to do a temporary event, right now, that would be for 14 days. That is $25 for 14 days, and it would go up to 65 for those 14 days. That's an option of theirs.
Well,
If a food truck, can I just, go ahead, PJ.
I didn't know if it was 25 for the 14 days and then it goes up after 14 days.
No, a temporary food permit is good for 14 days.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Or, that's okay, go ahead, I just wanted, there was a
No,
lot
I'm
in that
just-
question, so I'm
Yeah, I'm
trying
sorry.
to really,
14 consecutive days? or
correct.
14
It has to be,
events?
a temporary food permit by law is 14 consecutive days.
Okay, so it could only be for one event then?
It would be for, that permit is good for 14 days.
14,
What-
it
So
could be
if
14.
2 events fell within those 14 days, then we have allowed them,
Correct.
as long as the menu didn't change, because this is all about food protection and having food educators work with people on food protection. So if a food truck did an event and it ran once in 14 days, it would be 25 or proposed 65. If 2 events ran within those 14 days, they've been able to do 25 or 65 in those, within those 14 days for years. If the food truck requested a seasonal license, because they wanted to go to a seasonal market, like on Stony Hill Road or sometimes our lawn, and they wanted to do more than 14 days, let's say they wanted to do 3 or 4, 6 events, maybe 8 events, then they would, normally they would get a seasonal license, and that covers a longer period of time. So that would then,
Seasonal is
a
100.
seasonal, and that, correct, 100 now they pay, or it would go up to 130.
I think
Then-
the temporary needs to go up.
Well,
The temporary one should be up. $25 is ridiculous.
well, that's,
Well-
that's, PJ, what,
Oh, if we could just have one at a
Sorry.
time, because I
And
want to,
then
we want to
Pat, did I-
capture names and make
Was there one
sure.
more question in
Never
that?
been.
We'll
Well,
get-
oh, restaurant. If a restaurant did, right now, because that was multi-layered question, if a restaurant did a temporary event and it wasn't a nonprofit, okay? They kept the funds that they made. They pay 25 now, and they would pay 65 proposed. In our town, if it was nonprofit, there's about 45 of them a year, if not more, the First Selectman's Office waived all nonprofit applications for temporary food service, so we've never collected any fees.
Okay.
And so, but if even under new, if a restaurant of 1, 2, 3, or 4, the classifications, wanted to do a for-profit, they would pay under new $65 for the 14 days, or they could do a seasonal, depending on what they were doing, so they have options. Did that answer the question?
It does, so just to clarify, then, if they were doing, well, use PJ as an example. If he were doing an event for a for-profit group or for a family here in Bethel, and he would only fall under then that lower fee, that $60
He'd pay
fee,
$65.
each time he did one.
If he did 2 events within those 14 days, he could do the 2 events and get 2 reviews done for that $65 like they do now.
Okay.
Now they get 2, 3 depending for $25.
Okay.
If it's a nonprofit, a big discussion point, so we want your feedback, for the Board of Selectmen. Nonprofits, in the town of Bethel were always waived, but it's always the same amount of work. So you're gonna see a funny, if you go to 224.4, you're gonna see nonprofit temporary food service application, because staff still spend time to talk about food protection. The discussion about them paying a new fee of $40, so that 40 should have been in the new column. And it should have said new fee of $40 and then proposed fee $40. And they were thinking that they would give a little give me, so it wouldn't be $65, it'd be $40, but still try to cover the cost of the food protection representatives that do all that work.
And if I could just add one.
Please.
Exclude religious organizations, what does that mean?
Oh, so, a lot of the religious organizations do an awful lot of food service, and to date, they have always been excluded from fees. But in the marketplace, if you looked around the country, they're now being billed like everyone else. That has been a quandary of ours, and in this it's saying, please decide, should we still exclude religious organizations completely, understanding how much they do in the community to help with social services that come to the health department.
That makes sense, thank you. It was difficult when reading this because you couldn't really understand how it applied to nonprofits, how it applied to restaurants, and events that the town itself does for their own community, how this is going to impact them. So that was very helpful, thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, sir.
Backing up to Paul's point of getting the fees in line with where they should be over a 20-year period, should you start at a baseline and work your way up and say we have to raise the fees this much to make sure that even by raising the fees, you're gonna even get close to what covering the expenses of that department?
Yeah, that's been the challenge, is that covering the cost of staff and
And
resources.
this will bring it into line.
So, well, no, we'll still be low to midline. Most jurisdictions are reviewing their fees now. Danbury just enacted on June 2018 new fees. Our fees are going to look low in comparison to them, but the town of Bethel always supported public health and public health protection. So this, when you look at Danbury's new fees, is gonna look middle to low, but I still think it's a fair proposal.
But to capture your comment, you're suggesting raising them gradually. Is that correct?
Raising them gradually, but also taking into consideration, you know, the development that we're trying to get in the commercial area downtown here. Try to, you know, make sure we don't drive people away that might be thinking about opening up a business within the town. Because that's an important part of this, you know, this factor here of saying, you know, we're trying to, on the zoning end of the deal, trying to get development downtown, save the downtown, and make it viable for people to operate businesses here. We shouldn't drive, you know, some people away by, you know, raising a fee that they're gonna have to pay by operating their business here.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
feel that the fees are comparable. The
Well,
cost of doing business
I understand that they're comparable, but people will make that business decision of where to move their business or where to open their business based on this factor and not this factor alone, but, you know, they'll base it on other factors.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this could be one that pushes them over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could, you know, the viability of the, you know, expenses here might be one that pulls them in this direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll just answer questions. That's good. By the way, just for the record, because I noticed that the camera doesn't pick you up, that was Bob Legnard.
okay.
And thank you very much. So we just want to make sure that we capture names for the record. So thank you for your comments, Bob. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, that's it.
Okay. Floor is open? Yes. Hi, Wendy.
Wendy Cahill, am I supposed to state my name?
I'm sorry, Wendy,
Oh,
what's your
my-
last name?
Cahill, C-A-H-I-L-L,
And your address?
3 Maple Lane
Thank you.
in Bethel. One question, maybe a discrepancy. I feel like, I've been in business since 2003 downtown, and I think the fees have actually increased. From what I was initially paying, not a lot, by the way, and probably not enough. But I'm relatively sure that they were $50 and then they were $75, another $100.
Which fee specifically? Because the
The
sheet hasn't
yearly-
changed.
Basically the yearly fee.
I'm looking at our code book, chapter
That-
56.
I thought so, but I'm
Yeah, chapter 56 fees on our health department. And I've gone through this, and the latest amendment that I see is 1998.
That was just.
I don't know what, are you
Was it
sure it's a
change?
health
Yeah.
department fee and not a
Yeah.
different fee?
That was my question. But,
And,
so my comment really is not, it's not just about business development, it's about keeping our businesses downtown. And with our business taxes and property taxes consistently going up, it becomes harder and harder and harder to keep taking on fees from every which way. This isn't the only fee we pay. So $250 to me is a huge amount of money. Because somebody else is gonna want another 100. The business taxes are gonna go up another couple hundred. The property taxes are gonna, because we pay, property taxes on the businesses that we lease, just in case anybody doesn't know. So it's a hit. It's a pretty huge hit. And that's just me just stating that. In addition to the fact that now the QFO thing, you know, we also, I don't really understand the changes in the QFO fees, because when people are tested and then take the exam, why is that not enough?
It's not that it's not enough.
Okay.
It's that we are responsible to confirm if somebody can demonstrate knowledge.
Right,
And
like
you know in
our-
food safety how there's a lot to learn and know and
Yeah.
grow all the time. So
Oh, totally.
sometimes it gives people the option if they want to demonstrate it. That's what this would do.
Like, because we have the books and everybody goes through the tests and it's
Right,
fine.
but
Do you have to score the test and
no,
evaluate?
no, we're talking about live. Isn't sometimes real life and doing everything we're supposed to do a little
Yeah,
different from.
Oh, absolutely
Yeah,
different.
so it's more
I
about, it's just
totally
more about
understand
the
that.
food service.
She does multi-job.
Is there a new fee on that?
Coffee and soda.
No, it's just that, PJ, if somebody, if the inspector goes out and someone can't say what the proper cooking temperatures are, or if they can't show that they can demonstrate food safety knowledge, and then they could work with the health department, and there'd be a fee, and we could get them where they're supposed to be by law. That's what I'm trying to say to Wendy. So it wouldn't, unfortunately, even when people pass the test, sometimes inspections, so that we need to strengthen our food protection practices together. Temperatures,
That's the most important.
reheating, cooling,
I
all
mean,
the
yeah, I
hard
mean,
work
that's-
you do.
It's the most important thing we do, but.
So that's what that is.
That's not a mandatory, that's just.
Okay,
That's
wait.
not mandatory.
Wait,
You see it.
Okay, wait, if I can interrupt. Wendy, are you done? Did you have more questions? You have the floor. Okay, all right,
But
yes.
thank you, can I say, Wendy, that's not mandatory. Anything about the QFO was to provide options and support, so like now, if.
No, it's just, I thought, I overheard, so there was a new price increase for that too. Because as you said, there was, it just read
Yeah,
wrong.
it was wrong.
Yeah, so we all thought it went from 100 to 350. So I said, what the F is that? I mean, because like Wendy said,
Yeah,
Sorry for the
it's
hard
not
attack.
just one bill, and then Jesus, I got 10 different.
What's your name?
I'm Patrick O'Neill from O'Neill's,
Okay, well, I'm just gonna write you down.
114 Greenwood Avenue.
Yeah.
So I get hit 8 different police departments in Danbury, whether it's, you know, we lost a cop, help the family out to DARE to money, and you get all the fire stuff. But I bet you I hand out at least 150 different breakfast for twos and lunch for twos, gift certificates
Mhm.
to do things. So it's not just so, like Bob said, 21 years later, we had an epiphany that, okay, and I get it. $100 isn't terrible. But to go from 100 and then to jump, maybe someone should have said, hey, you know, it's like I just got a hit last year with paper products. Hey, PJ, we're gonna hit you 20%, and then in 6 months, we're gonna hit you another 20%. I'm still getting over the 20%, but I go, paper products are going up 40%, he goes, the 3 biggest companies going up 40%. So maybe there is a way to, maybe maybe next year, and then 2020, we're going up to 175, maybe 200, whatever the number is. I don't, it's just something to think about. But I know it has to, I mean, maybe it needs to jump up significantly, and then maybe another smaller boost later. It's funny, it's like the water thing. All of a sudden we had epiphany, we haven't done the water shed in 30, 40 years. It's
Mhm.
stuff like that, because we're a small town.
Mhm.
We're not Ridgefield, where I grew up, where they have all the money in the world to keep up with things and tax people down over there. So I get it, we gotta keep up with our infrastructure and everything else, but I just think now we have these epiphanies, and it's not anybody's really fault, it's just we're trying to make things better.
Mhm.
Like the food safety stuff and all that. I get it, we want everybody to be safe in town and be happy and stuff, but it thinks, I know, it's just some advice. Maybe that's what you need to do because you guys are falling behind, but sometimes if you do a double increase and get back up to par in 2 years, 3 years, that's fine too, I think. That's just my only input.
All right. Steve?
I was
just
Steve
your name.
Michelle,
Yeah.
Texaco. I was just, when Laura was talking about 224 3, the demonstration knowledge and course test. I was just trying to bring it back around that was an optional, that wasn't a mandatory thing. That was if the health department found reason that they needed to educate.
Oh, okay.
I think we had discussed something like that a while back, so I was just trying to help that. Maybe we should leave that.
Okay. Okay, further comments? Yes.
Hi, Brad Colts, 1 Fairchild Drive, also the Executive Director and President of the Bethel Chamber. I've got just a couple of questions, and I'd like to share some feedback that I've gotten from some of our members. I think you answered my basic question of QFOs, and that's great. Could you please tell me any other communities that are currently charging for nonprofits? Our research didn't turn up any adjacent communities. I confess we didn't look at Danbury. We felt Danbury was just such a larger community relative to Bethel that it really wasn't an apples to apples. But when we looked at Brookfield or Monroe or Newtown or Wilton, we didn't find anybody charging this nonprofit fee. So you had indicated that you thought some were, and I was just curious who those were.
When we did an analysis for the Board of Finance last year about the town of Bethel, we were very similar in what the health department sees to Trumbull and Danbury. Very similar. It's probably because we're adjacent to them and where we're right together. 2 health directors and their staff see a lot of similar local public health needs and requests. So I had told you Danbury has nonprofit fees, and they have new ones. They had them on their old chart, and there are many local health departments that charge for nonprofits. I did not know that, having been a director that never had to deal with that. Health directors like to do health protection first, but there were many besides the city of Danbury, and I think that I should get back to you. But I want to say that I thought Fairfield and maybe Trumbull and several others, but I would feel more comfortable if I could get your email address and if I could reply to you later.
Sure. Okay, now I just want to make sure that I understand the class codes that are being used. I consulted a document from the state, and I just want to make sure that I've got this right. Class 1.
I didn't hear you. Did you just speak up, please?
Sure.
Class codes.
The class codes. I just want to confirm that I've got the right
Yeah.
businesses allocated to the right codes. So my research showed that class 1 would be something analogous to a coffee shop, an ice cream shop, something like that.
Spot on.
Okay.
Gas station.
Okay. A class 2 would be a deli, a fast food place like a McDonald's, okay, or Burger King or something.
Oh yes, it's the
Okay.
we're not That's exactly,
Okay.
no, I think that's helpful.
No,
That's
okay.
what people ask.
So a class 3 is essentially the restaurants in the community, those that are actually cooking and serving cooked food.
Well, it's not what it goes by for a class 3 from the technical perspective,
Yes,
but
thank
that was very helpful. Class 3 can be a Wendy's if they cool burgers,
Okay.
right, for chili.
Yep.
It could be a Subway if they cool and reheat soup and meatballs. It can be a KFC for cool chicken for pot pies, a full-service restaurant,
Right.
caterers, itinerant vendors, grocery stores with complex processes, and schools maybe, but not preschools, that cool and reheat. So I just wanted to call out to you that with the class 3s,
Right.
from the technical food safety perspective, well, it's a little more food protection work. So it's about cooking right, hot holding, cold holding, and making sure that germ control's done with it. And then lastly, class 4.
Oh, okay, it's a quiz.
No, you had it, I'm complimenting
No,
you.
I was teasing.
Or I'll do it.
What
No,
is-
I've got hospitals, preschools, daycare, anyone that's serving a potentially at-risk.
That's it,
community.
right. That's the
So the
state.
class increases as the health safety risk increases?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so so you're right in that, we spend a lot of time on this. We're still trying to be fair to everyone. We have great food service establishments. We really sometimes have to work with them with the chart and go over it with them, and we do it together to make sure that everybody's in agreement on class 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Right.
So when it's not blatant. So most of our food establishments will end up a 3, but sometimes they could be a 2 or a 4, and it's gonna be cooking, reheating, hot holding, cold holding.
Now, the analysis that I'm looking at shows a couple of kind of glaring increases. The class 1, for example, compared to Monroe, appears to be about a 50% increase. Over Newtown, it appears to be an 8-fold increase. So I understand that there's some communities where there may be equivalency, but when, from my position in the chamber, when I'm trying to convince someone that one of the 24 available locations that we've got in the town for a new business is a good place to come, those are some of the folks that I'm competing against now. And I'm just wondering if those factored into some of the thinking about.
They did, except for
This is
Newtown
right.
is in the same process we are. And when you look at the city of Danbury's new fees, you will see just how reasonable these fees being proposed are, I believe. And then Trumbull's is, Trumbull, when we did an analysis, Janice looked at the work that the health department did. I'd hear to you and Janice, our economic development director. Bethel was very, very similar to Trumbull. So I would have you look at Trumbull and see what you thought in relation to that. So
Sure.
Newtown is considering increasing, so they forewarned us about that.
Do you know the timetable on that?
I
Because
don't.
We've lost businesses to Newtown recently, so
Okay.
I'm concerned about that.
Okay. I don't know their timetable.
In fact,
I
we've lost
just know-
restaurants to Newtown.
Okay.
All right, so again, there are some other places where Newtown clearly, if they're updating things, but even in Monroe, class 3s is about a 10% increase over what Monroe currently has on their site. So I'm just wondering if you could give me some idea about when you're looking at implementing this and looking at the competitive issue of trying to keep the businesses that we have and trying to attract new businesses, what kind of balance is being applied to that? Because the feedback I'm getting from our members is this seems to be a lot, maybe too soon. But I will say this, I've spoken with 28 restaurants, owners and managers in the last 2 days about this topic. Not one of them has said that we shouldn't fund the health department so that you can do your job. So there's unanimity about the support for what you do with that population. Almost everyone I've spoken to has been concerned about the depth and extent of this change. That, I think, is really the big concern that I've seen. Now, at the Chamber, we posted on our website, unfortunately, we linked to the incorrect posting that you had here at Town Hall. But we posted a survey, and within the first roughly 24 hours, we had 97 surveys taken. 3 of them were washed, but 94 of them were filled out. 91 of them expressed opposition to some element of what we're looking at. Most of the comments, and again it's anecdotal, most of the comments referred to the pace of the change, the depth of the increase, not the need for an increase. There obviously was some misunderstanding based on things on different rows, and I'm thrilled that that is resolved. I think that was frankly terrifying to a couple of folks that were looking at that. So I just want to thank you for having corrected that as well.
To answer your question, none of those factors have been discussed. The way this process works is we put out through the department, through its research, the target.
Yep.
And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen to take your feedback and figure out how to get there.
Got it.
So we have no plan in place right now, so that's why this feedback is very valuable. Okay. Is there anybody else, before Pat speaks again, is there anybody else who wants? Oh, yeah, okay.
Laura,
Just one moment.
on the QFO, and I think Steve brought that up before, you have a 220 for a new fee proposal. So prior to this year, there has been nothing in that line. Is that correct? On 224.3? 220, yeah, 22.4.3, the QFO.
In the past, I had, the health department has a decision to make. If someone can't verbally demonstrate their knowledge, then they're supposed to be removed. But we work very diligently with all our partners to try to make sure that we can reach our goals together. So there was no fee for that. And this was to try to have a fee if somebody wanted to work with the health department, not mandatory, to get to the demonstration of knowledge for the basics. That's what that was for.
Well, that's the,
It's not to, and it wasn't mandatory. Sometimes people,
no, I'm looking at the line above that, 224.3,
yeah.
where it was $220. Is that, am I on the right
And
line?
here it says new fee and proposed new fee.
Correct.
Thanks to Attorney Mulder. Right,
All right, so
that's new,
that's totally new.
new. It was meant to be a benefit. Non-mandatory,
Oh, non-mandatory?
non-mandatory. It would be at the request of a partner, stakeholder, client.
But, I'm sorry, Brad Feltz, as I understand it, though, the alternative would be removing the individuals. So obviously the fee, in your view, might be a little different than.
I
Than it
feel
appeared in print,
I
let's put it
feel
that
like
way.
the staff and the
Right.
stakeholders have done a very good job together over the years, and I think we could continue to do that. It's just that their rates have to be covered to provide that. It wouldn't be, they could, sometimes people decide, okay, this isn't for me, I can't remember, I can't do it.
I do have one more question about
Yeah.
my classification quiz. Where do food trucks fit into that scheme?
Oh, boy, same way. We have to look at the menu, we have to look at the operation, we have to look at the variables, and we have to drill it down. I thought the quiz was for me, and I admitted I had to go get the 2 charts, because we use them all the time with the restaurants. We're doing it live together, and then we.
They have to have someone qualified to.
Yes, and what he's
Alright.
asking, I think, are they a 1, 2, 3, or
That was-
4?
yeah.
That PJ, he's asking me, and so it depends on their menu. See, they're all different. That's what people don't realize. When we get all these applications, a menu can be different, the staff could be different, the setup in the truck could be different, and so that's all reviewed and processed for food
So
protection.
just to clarify, food trucks can be any classification depending upon what they're serving. That's how the classification is based, rather than the fact that they're a food truck.
What they're serving and how they make it, correct?
How they make it. cooling, reheating, it's everything that he was reading.
Yes.
Sorry,
Did you get,
Alicia Priori, Priore, 1 Fairchild Drive.
So yes, we kind of work it as a process together so that we can figure out together where they're gonna fall. Because some food trucks only have a very limited menu. Maybe
So-
they only do coffee and tea and some kind of
Or
cake.
yogurt or something, and, right, okay.
We actually, when we say we need to work with you, we really do exactly what he was doing with you.
Thank you.
okay, comments, further comments? Yes, Nancy Ryan?
Nancy Ryan, 25 Walnut Hill Road. I just have a question. I'm hearing a lot of the input that's being given. It's more in the restaurant area. Have we had any input from, like, builders, et cetera, on septic fees and et cetera, on the increases on those?
My office has not received any, I don't know if you have. Any.
Well, that was my next question.
No.
Or do they know about it? That's out there.
I would like to share
It's out
one
there.
observation about this process. Those 28 restaurants that I spoke with over the last 2 days, only one restaurant was aware of this process at the time. Only one.
He came and told me today.
So, I would ask that you take a look at the process. and
Well, we can
how-
talk about that offline, I'll explain.
Laura, I have a question on the septic fees.
Yeah?
201, new residential,
Mm-hmm.
it's going from 100 to 200.
Correct.
Now, and then if you go down to 210.2, residential plan review.
Yeah?
So is that in an additional, so you'd be paying 200 plus the 150?
You would pay, if you were doing a new house,
Yes.
so once upon a time you would soil test, so like everybody does, so that's 208. And most of the health department data is good for life. So the product is really unbeatable in the market because the data is good for life. So there's no other product really like that. So 208, you'd soil test for 125 at some point. And then you would submit a plan. And your plan, if it was an engineered plan, should be on there. And you will pay a plan review fee for an engineered plan review.
Is it residential plan?
So that's another 150.
And that, no, that might have been an engineer, maybe that was a typo, engineer plan review,
Okay.
150. If it needed an engineer, if it was an installer, plan review would be 100. And then for the septic system, because these are all different services. When we soil test, it's about 2 hours doing a assessment of the soils and the percolation rate. So that's a service separate. And then a plan review is a detailed plan that takes an hour and a half or so to review, and there's a cost for that review in most local public health agencies. And then when you take out a septic permit, the health department by law, this is all mandatory, does inspections from the beginning to end, and then you get a sign off that verifies that your equity as far as public health is what it is. So actually those are 3 separate services, and they are broken out that way as 3 separate costs for 3 separate services.
Right, but what I was looking at, it's a total of those 3 items.
Correct.
If you're building a new house and want to put
Correct.
a system in
In every jurisdiction.
before 75.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nancy, did you get,
No, I just.
did you
Beth had
already?
So Beth had commented, yes, people are knowing about it, so what kind of comments are we getting as far as that section? Any of the building, septic, residential, new, old, putting in a new one, having to take your old one out, putting a new one in, all that's different. I can see it's all spelled out there. But are we getting comments from people as to what they're thinking about? Because we're trying to get as much information together on the proposal to see, is this good? Should we raise it? Should we lower it? So are we getting, we're hearing from restaurant folks, are we getting anything from either homeowners or builders on the fee schedule on
The builder's
all the
gonna add it
septic
in.
stuff?
The builders,
No.
well, I don't wanna say.
The
Beth
builders just
Kavagna-
added in. That's what
Beth
they,
Cavagna,
Yep.
they're just gonna add it to the fee.
Yeah.
The builder's just gonna add it to the fee. That's the
So the
bottom line,
homeowner
that's how
doesn't
it
know.
works. Anytime you're dealing with a new installation, it's the same as a zoning permit.
Yeah.
It's the same as an application that comes into my office, for new construction, new building. Now, there's a lot of time that goes into it, there's a lot of, effort on both sides of the table, but I'm sure that the fee is always added on to whoever's purchasing the house. It's always included in their plan, it's always included in their business plan, such as health department fees. Anyone that's coming into town and doing a restaurant or something of that nature, part of their business plan is inclusion of health department fees. And sign fees, I'll mention that in zoning, but uses, there are fees associated with doing business, we all know that. And I think the input from the restaurant people that are here this evening is very valuable.
all right, PJ, one more time. So I'm just gonna emphasize, one more time, because now we're going over septic stuff. I'm looking at the whole thing.
Mhm.
And granted, I guess on both sides, septic and restaurants. Nothing's been done in quite a bit, huh? Okay.
They haven't changed it since
Obviously,
1998.
the homeowner's gonna get whacked, and they just don't know about it yet. So, so it just seems like a lot of things triple or quadruple, that's all we're saying.
Mhm.
So I just think when you guys do proposals, when you guys are doing the water stuff and stuff, I just think maybe people, I don't think they meant, when Bob was over here talking about whacking, it was almost like a whack-a-mole. I'm just saying maybe, even like the paper goods, maybe you may have to think, cause 100 to 350, 100 to 200, 30 to 100, I mean, it's all tripling and quadrupling. I'm just saying, we gotta get there. I agree, if other towns are there, we gotta get there. I'm just saying, maybe you may have to do it over a 2 or 3 year period.
Mhm.
That's all I can emphasize,
Mhm.
because these epiphanies are adding up. Done.
Wendy Kate once again. I also wanted to just say that, looking at the whole picture, it does seem like in these changes, restaurants are taking the brunt of the balancing of this discrepancy that's been happening for years. The percentage-wise, restaurants are going to be paying more of an increase than in the other parts of this budget. And like PJ said, we do also do a lot for this community. So, I mean, I think it just doesn't seem quite balanced to me.
Mhm.
Especially if a lot of these are one-offs for somebody building. Whereas the $350 is ours every single year. This is for a builder, for the person who's going to be buying the property, an extra $100 one time.
But we can't compare it like that to keep it apples to apples. With restaurants, you're all mandated by law to have inspections based on class. And the monies go for the inspectors that work with you. So in your establishments, in any food establishment, you'll have your 3 or 4 inspections a year, any complaint inspections, any issue inspections, any educational inspections, any can we change this equipment, or can we work with you on this hybrid. So there's a lot of interaction with food establishments in a fiscal year. Way more than one-offs. So those
No, I
fees are based
understand.
on
I agree.
how
I'm
many
saying-
mandated inspections per year.
I'm saying this fee is a one-off.
Yeah,
Because for the,
I know what you're
like,
saying.
if a person is going out to inspect a septic for 2.5 hours, for example, you said, no inspector has ever come into Molten Java for 2.5 hours or over the course, even over the course of a year. It's about a half an hour inspection.
We would, but you wouldn't like it.
Well,
So we actually try not to.
Careful what you ask
We
for.
try.
I mean, I'm putting myself out there, obviously.
No,
Come on in.
Well, I was here for an hour last
no,
week.
Usually you want us out, so we go as
No,
fast
of course
as
we want you out.
possible.
That's why I like
Oh,
honesty in
understand.
politics.
I understand that. I just think,
You can't
you
compare
know,
the two.
you can compare it a little bit. I mean, because my life is comparing hours to money, always. So it's the amount of time, how much is an inspector getting paid per hour going in?
And then all the
And
food
how much
protection
is
work
each?
that they do with you. And how we've prevented
We
outbreaks.
do that
Okay.
as well. We go through training, we pay for our training, we pay for our license,
Yep.
and we do our things.
So, you're here,
I mean, we
thank you.
do our due diligence on that side too,
You do,
and it
you
costs us
do.
money as well. So, you know, I'm just,
No, duly noted.
I do have.
Well, just a second, Dawn had her hand up.
Go on to.
Dawn Fawcett, 3 Oldfield Drive. I just wanted to ask you a question. So I'm sorry to go back to this. So for the restaurants, so we do obviously a lot of events downtown for the Bethel Chambers. So my question is, when a restaurant comes, say for Trick or Treat Street, say PJ comes and he's gonna sell hot dogs at Trick or Treat Street. So his temporary permit is gonna go up to $65 for
the
him to
event.
come do hot dogs.
If
That
it-
day for 4 hours?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I just would like to say that if you guys could find a way to make a gradual increase instead of jumping to the 65, because that's really gonna hurt all of the events that we do.
I can say that it will in fact eliminate some of the events that happen in town. That we can't get the participation of the restaurants, and I can tell you that many of them will not participate over a $40 jump.
Well-
It's significant. in that respect.
Is that for a non-profit event or for profit? For the record, if he with PJ.
The chamber's a nonprofit.
The
No,
chamber is.
no, if PJ.
No, but usually they hand out the soup on trick or treat, right?
And it's.
No, that's,
So
no,
it's
that's
free
us.
Christmas, that's Christmas.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
But you don't, but when you do that, you don't, it's a non-profit action,
No, what,
right?
no, the restaurant like the, event we just had, Sal's Pizza was set up, they sold food, they kept the money.
That's not a nonprofit.
Yeah,
Right.
and then they had
Yeah.
$25 fee.
They paid a 20, but they are gonna pay 65 is
Correct.
what you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
I just wanted to
So-
make sure.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that this is gonna impact a lot of our events that we have. And a lot of
So-
restaurants are probably not going to come to our event.
Well,
I just
I
wanted to,
have a question about some events that we're looking to move forward to, and I don't understand how this will apply to that. We're looking to, for example, with our beer fest, next year, we're gonna look to have restaurants from town. We're gonna look to include in the purchase price of the ticket, not just beer tastings, but also food. So I'm not clear what the requirement for the folks that participate with us as a nonprofit for our event would be for them to get properly licensed to participate with us.
And thank you, that's great. And they're gonna decide that for a nonprofit, 224.4. If you go down to
Got it.
224.4,
That's at $40.
they're trying to decide
Right.
if they should put in a fee for a nonprofit event, and if $40 should be the amount.
So would that $40 apply to the chamber, or would that apply to the 10 restaurants each?
I think that
individually?
needs to be
Each
determined.
It would be each individual,
Each
correct?
applicant.
Who's benefiting from it? Is the chambers benefiting from it, or is the
Primarily.
restaurant people?
Some revenue would be shared back out of a pool, but it's
$40.
primarily the nonprofit that's benefiting from it. It would be shared back to pay for costs of them
Yeah.
participating.
Or I think like when we hold the carnival out here, we get, we do the food booth as a nonprofit, but the cotton candy and popcorn and candy apples and all that has to get
And, it's
apply to
25.
you for a permit,
Right.
and they have to pay because they keep all that money.
Does that help?
Uh,
They're looking
It's not a
at-
similar,
No, I meant when I took you to,
Right.
224.4, they're looking at nonprofit fees, I'd already promised you I would get you some data on which jurisdictions
appreciate that.
had nonprofit fees, and they were going to discuss it. It was a big discussion item.
I would certainly like to be on record as pleading with you to consider not charging for nonprofits. It's an incredibly important part of what a lot of the nonprofits do in this community, and I think it would curtail a lot of the activity that the public enjoys and that the nonprofits need in order to stay viable.
I would second that also.
Would there be any amount for a nonprofit that would be acceptable to you? Like a $20, $25?
I think $25 is probably in the range of we wouldn't get pushback. As soon as you pass that $25 mark, you start to get pushback, and we would see participation drop. And having sufficient participation is key to some of these things.
And all of this flows into the character and all the things all of us enjoy and embrace about being in Bethel that we don't want to see disappear. It's a wonderful place. We just don't want to have anything impact in such a way that it's going to cost us the character, the charm, the small town.
Bob?
One more comment. Part of identifying a problem and coming to a solution of it is seeing that it doesn't happen again. In the 21 years, I think you need to build something into this so that whoever's sitting there 21 years from now is in the same position. Whether it's review it every couple of years.
I think they got the
I know Paul's getting up there at age, but he won't. But, you know, see what I'm saying is identify, you know, something, if you do, you know, bring it in gradually, you know, bring it gradually, make sure you build in something into the system.
Like we did for water and sewer.
Yeah, you're gonna review it in 2 years, and make sure that.
Well, no, we're gonna bring it up in 2 years, if we're doing like
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's a good point. So I guess, I hear
Marty, could that be put into the charter? No.
No, that's,
That it has to come up for review?
Something you just put in the data, every couple of years, bring it up and take it.
yes, Pat.
Pat Riston, Shelter Rock Road. I just wanted to reiterate, I want to ask, what class do you fall into?
I am
there's a
a 3.
test.
I am a 3.
He's a 3. All right, so looking at a 3, it's going from 100 to 350. So again, I'm just saying, I believe, I'm not 100% sure that the surrounding towns have been raising their rates over the years. And I think to take a class 3 from 100 to 350, literally overnight, this is where they have to be reviewed and phased in. And phased in maybe 2 to 3 years, a little bit each year, but not take that full hit.
Well, a 2 is 352.
Well, exactly.
So, and a 2 is not that far off from me either. So, 1 is really, you're not getting anything. Once you start hitting the hot food, we get more refrigerators, more stuff that hot's posed. That's when you go into 2s. And there's really not much from a 2 to a 3, 3 to a 4 really. We're all really going in from bakery to cooking.
Or you're going from even 100 to 375. I just think
No,
that's
that's
that's for 4. I just think
I
that's
agree.
It's a heavy hit for a business.
3 to
saying,
4 times.
This is your invoice, 375. I think you have to look at phasing it in. It's unfortunate that the rates weren't raised over 21 years. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. But I don't think you want to turn around and put that burden on local restaurants. Look at phasing it in. That's my only request.
I agree.
Chamber agrees to. The chamber agrees with that as well. There's no dispute that these have to go up. It's just the pace and the depth of that.
You do wait last time for?
I did. I just want to make more of a general comment.
I'm sorry, your name?
My name is Baldwin Proda. I'm at 11 Highview Terrace. I'm not in the restaurant business, but I'm in the insurance business, and I insure restaurants. And one of the things that I've been able to observe is that, you know, insurance rates are based on payroll and they're based on gross receipts. Gross receipts have not really gone up much at all. A lot of restaurants, it's actually less, and the payrolls are flat. And that's indicative of the fact that you know, the business activity's just not really happening the way it could be. And every time you increase the expense for the restaurant, they have to pass that expense on to the customer. So as they pass that expense on to the customer's gonna make a choice. And he's not gonna come to the restaurant as often. So basically, the more, you know, the more pressure you put on, the less activity we're gonna have here economically, and that's the only point I want to make. And I agree with these, you know, the folks here that phasing it in probably makes a little bit more sense than just hammering people with a big increase.
Well, it's like you give me $1,200 or $600, and now it's 33 or $4,000, and what? It's, I agree. You need to get, obviously 350, and wow, we're way off. We are off. If that's what it costs to run the business aspect of the health department,
That's correct.
obviously we're falling way short. So I think at every get the test, okay, we got to get there. But I do think next year if we all go and sign in, you're gonna have some people not paying. If it's not going to be able to. I just think you need to get there over a 2 or 3 year period of time. We've all said it, and I've said it 3 times now, but.
Well, I think one thing we don't want to see is more empty storefronts.
We can't hear you.
I think what we don't want to see is any empty storefronts as a result of this.
Okay. Further comments? Going once, going twice? All right. Let me close just by saying that the way this process works is now that we've had a formally noticed public hearing, the Board of Selectmen will have to do something about this within 30 days. So that deadline is October 18th. Probably we'll deliberate at the next meeting, and then the meeting after that is October 16th. So we will take this in, and I'll take all your comments under consideration. You know, very understandable. I appreciate you sharing this evening. Just want to reiterate the point that what we're trying to do, and everybody knows, everybody in here except maybe the newcomers has been through a budget process, and we can debate for hours about a $2,000 bill. So we're looking at a shortfall of tens of thousands of dollars, at the same time trying to improve service in this department. I have seen Laura work 7 days a week since the heavy season starts. And we can't treat our employees this way, and we have to provide better service to you. So this isn't just to shore up the user fee structure just because we're behind. It's to provide revenue so that we can give her some help, so that when you need a license, when you need something from that department, we can turn that around faster. Because right now, that department is up against the wall. It really is. So there is a service component where we're trying to do a better job serving the community. But again, we appreciate the comments. You're welcome to come to the next 2 Board of Selectmen meetings and listen to whatever debate we have or discussion.
She got into the restaurant business, you work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, Beth said you work at 7.
Yeah.
Nancy?
Will you take input, like
Yeah.
if somebody emails you
Sure.
or? you
Yeah,
know,
this
they didn't
this
get a chance to
this
read
is
it,
this
so
is
they
not
can-
like a formal planning and zoning hearing where we close the hearing. If you, anybody who has more input, feel free to email it in. It'll go as correspondence to the into the Board of Selectmen. This is a lot more laid back.
Part of the process.
Yeah. We want to consider everybody.
She's a nice lady.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody for
Just got her
coming
last
tonight.
week.
Your inputs really impact the Board of Selectmen. We take them very, very seriously. But we both understand what's at stake here. You know, from the town perspective, it's always providing the right service, but from a retail or business point of view, on your side of the aisle, that has to be considered also. So, fear not, we're going to take this all into consideration.
Thank you. I do want to make one more comment. I want to address something that Mr. Legnard said. You know, the town is remiss that this was allowed to go for 21 years, but there isn't really any way to encode it. People get elected to these positions, and nobody nobody, including the three of us and Laura, wants to sit here and raise fees. But you have to be responsible. It's the same thing that happened with the water department fees, and all of a sudden, the water department is $2.9 million in the hole and losing $100,000 a year. The responsible thing to do is to address this, and so I just want people to understand that part of it. And, you know, in the future, I hope we have, you know, when the three of us are, you know,
Yeah,
who
but
have
we've
gray hair, and when we're not here, I hope we elect people that have the courage to just keep up with it, because
Yeah.
that's what it's gonna take.
Mhm.
Just gradually keep up with it, because I agree with that.
Can't you attach a COLA or something like that?
You know, actually, that would be a pretty complicated ordinance, but it probably could. It's, you know,
Well, like rents go up 3% every three, you know, in a contract,
Yeah.
maybe that's.
right.
They would have made it easy.
All right, but thank you again, everybody, appreciate it. I'm gonna formally close this hearing, it's 8:02. Thank you for attending, and PJ, I'll see you in the morning.